Hey everybody, welcome back to South Bay Sit Downs here with Adam Barteresian, Tommy Cardiel, and our guest today is Gabe Ribas, who is pitching coordinator for the Los Angeles Dodgers. A little intro to Gabe. He played his college baseball in the Big Ten at Northwestern University, played 4 years there before getting drafted by the Padres in 2002. 2003, he was the San Diego Padres minor league pitcher of the year. Wound up playing 6 years of professional baseball over, within about 3 organizations. And you know what, Gabe, thanks for being here. Appreciate it.
Appreciate you guys for having me. It's always been good to be a friend of the Trotsky-Cali family.
Nice. Appreciate it. So talked a little bit about your playing career, but really one of the reasons we wanted you on is your insights into coaching. So I guess first and foremost, how did you get started into coaching?
Yeah, so when I was playing, I remember standing in the outfield with probably my favorite pitching coach, who is now the bullpen coach for the Yankees, Mike Harkey, guy who's been a huge influence in my life. And I asked Hark, number 1 pick overall, long major league career, why are you coaching? And he's like, my whole family's teachers. And he kind of mic dropped on me. And then I was like, what do you mean, Hark? Like, why are you riding buses in A-ball? Like, I get your family's teachers, but what are you talking about? And he's like, okay, what I love is being with guys for their light bulb moment, for helping them find something in themselves they never knew they had. And I started looking just kind of at my family background. My mom was a professor. My dad works out of college. My uncle was a high school football, baseball, basketball coach and teacher. My cousin is a baseball coach in Arizona. My other cousin coaches softball. So I had this background of educators. And while I was playing professionally, I started to kind of run with a group of guys who started talking about the fact that they wanted to coach after they were playing. And it just started getting that seed in my mind. And then as I started to get to the end of being a player, I called my head coach from Northwestern and I said, do you know of any, collegiate coaching jobs that would be a good fit for me? And he said, I don't, but there's a job at IMG Academy down in Florida that pays really well and will give you inroads into college coaching. So I did that for a year, and it was great. And then my college head coach said, I've got the second assistant position open, but I want to give you the recruiting responsibilities. So I went back to Northwestern for 2 years, realized I was at a bit of a standstill in terms of growth in my coaching career. To College of the Holy Cross to be the recruiting coordinator and pitching coach there. The financial situation there with Coach DeCenzo was rough, and so had an opportunity at Northern Colorado. And what I really wanted, I was taken with California baseball. I loved the style of play. I loved the players I got to see from California. And so Northern Colorado felt like that next jump to where I knew I was going to recruit a lot of California players. And then in the midst of that, I got to know Dan O'Brien, who took over at Santa Clara, and spent 6 years there, and a great 6 years. And at the end of it, was recruited away by the Dodgers to come to the pro side. Our staff reached the end of our run at Santa Clara, and there was this gap where I really decided that I wanted to try professional baseball on the coaching side. Dodgers are a great family. I know a lot of people, and so now I'm going into my 3rd year as one of two of us are pitching coordinators. My title is pitching coordinator performance, and my counterpart is pitching coordinator logistics. And it's been a great run. I've loved my experience all along the way.
I was saying, I was talking to you earlier, the Dodgers are working really hard to make me a Dodger fan, being a Northern California boy and a Giants fan my whole life. Between yourself, Mitch White, Stevie Berman, also Santa Clara guys you had there, and then Tom Kunis, who is an absolute legend in the Bay Area and in the coaching ranks. So yeah, you guys are making a push for sure.
No doubt.
So yeah, your time at Santa Clara. I know. Let's talk a little bit about that because I know we had a bunch of our players, some former players, attend. Obviously, we talked about Steve and Mitch, but Kyle Zaplak, another one of my all-time favorites in our program. Just watching him play and how he went about his business, and a couple other guys that went through our program and became Broncos. Tell us a little bit about your time there.
Yeah. So what's interesting is I had gotten to know Nate Trotsky kind of along the way early on. Watched Nate grow his just his and his teams. And honestly, I tell everybody this: everything I've gotten in coaching came via Stanford camp. That was kind of where my network of coaches grew, and honestly, where I spent probably my most energy and focus recruiting players because they fit the profile of basically all but one of the schools I worked at. And so when I was at Santa Clara, my relationship with Stanford camp itself changed a little bit, but my desire to continue to recruit the players that were attending that camp remained the same. And honestly, some of the very best players that we had at Santa Clara came through the Trotsky Cali program. You know, one, just geographic proximity to the events that you guys were doing. I could get in my car, go to Valley Christian, go to Saratoga, go anywhere and still be home at night for dinner with my wife. And that was a big deal. And the quality of player was amazing, you know? So
yeah.
Go ahead, Tommy.
Is that how you and Vart met?
So Vart and I had seen Vart a bunch, but I think our first meeting was at Monterey Bay, and it was cold as all get out. Like middle of summer, it was like, what's that?
Was that the one where we put the canopy on the mound?
Yeah.
Oh man.
I mean,
that was a rough one. That
cold and rainy, but we had like maybe shaken hands and interacted a little, and I was like, man, this dude with the beard that Nate's got working for him, I don't know, man, who is this guy? Who is this cat? And then we froze our butts off together at Monterey Bay and like talked basically the whole day and like grinded it out. I think I had hypothermia in one of my toes by the end of it. And like, I was like, this guy's got some real things figured out, not just about how to put together good teams, but about how to coach kids and treat kids and treat the coaches too. Like, I was just so impressed with you, Vart, the way that you interacted with us. You know, for me, a person that was going to see thousands of players in a summer, you know, your understanding of like, there were some things that were going to work for me and some things that weren't. And I couldn't take every player in your program, but you were constantly talking to me about the ones that might fit my profile. You never got hurt or let your ego get in the way when we were ready to move away from one of the Cali players. And, you know, always supported our recruiting efforts with the Cali Trotsky group, like always. And that would, you know, you don't always get everybody, and we get that. And so just having your support, the constantly, you know, reaching out beyond just the recruiting process, it goes so far. So, you know, to this day, I consider you one of my great friends in the game. So.
Awesome.
Yeah, absolutely. I definitely remember the Monterey Bay showcase. That's a legendary tale. I still remember it was, like you mentioned, freezing, rainy. Tucker Forbes, 6'8" on the mound with a canopy on top so that he's not getting rained on too hard. That was something else. But yeah, I mean, just in terms of your recruiting, I mean, I mentioned it earlier, like you guys not only recruited but committed and had some of our favorite players, my favorite players in the history of our program. Just, you know, incredible young men, obviously good baseball players, but people that you know, I knew that was something that you guys were looking for. You know, not just the player but the person. And a lot of the kids that we sent your way were looking for more than just baseball too. Not only education, but be around people that, we're going to help grow them and mature them as young men into adulthood. So that was something, you listen to our guys talk about. They love their time at Santa Clara with you guys. You start thinking about all the coaches I met through Santa Clara. Coach, Eddie Smith, when he was there for a second.
Yep.
Full Regard's been there. So we met some, just quality people. And that was kind of one thing, kind of leading into the player development side. One thing where I knew I gained a lot of respect for you as a coach and as a person was the Mitch White process. We had him on last week, and he talked a lot about how he didn't pitch a lot in high school. He was healthy for us in summers a lot of the time, and so he got his exposure that way, but didn't pitch a lot in high school, had some question marks leading into his NLI. Without naming names, we had some players in our program that were kind of skyrocketing and developing and doing really, really well, that had a lot of interest in Santa Clara. And Mitch had committed already, where, a lot of people in that position, without Mitch signing his NLI, would have found a way to walk away, would have found a way to go, hey, Mitch, you're banged up, a year of junior college, this, that, and the other, and, deviate and look for other players that are getting a little bit more attention at the time because they are pitching. That's something for me that I respected a lot. Obviously, you guys got super rewarded with that. Mitch, when healthy for you guys, pitched his tail off. Has a lot to do with your development side too. But tell us if you have any insight on that and how that all went down, because that was something that obviously struck a chord with me and impressed me from early.
Yeah. So kind of looping back, in the evaluation process, it's easy to look at talent and skill set, right? Like Stevie Berman could hit, he could catch. Kyle Zapel, probably the best athlete we ever committed. His college career fell short of what he had been in high school, but I don't know that I was ever more excited about a guy who committed than Kyle. He was unbelievable, and was recruited by a bundle of very big programs. And I love Kyle, Kevin George. But with Mitch, it was interesting. At a mid-major, you're always looking for these glimmers. And I would see Mitch and, this big skinny kid from Bellarmine, could really snap off a breaking ball. The velocity was coming. The delivery was weird. He was a great kid. And I was just so intrigued by what it could be. And this kind of lack of history. But I looked at the body and the frame and the feel for the breaking ball. And I was like, I really think that this guy's going to be something. And I think it was Tom Kunis actually that told me once, if a guy really has a feel for a breaking ball, the fastball is going to come, right? And Mitch really had a feel for a breaking ball, better than any guy I'd seen. And Calameni was in that group too, but he had a better feel for the fastball initially. And I was like, look, I know a hard breaking ball like that plays for us. And so when Mitch came up needing his Tommy John, my boss at the time was like, look, we've got all the ammo to move away from this. Like, you tell me how much you like him. I said, we can move away, but I'm pretty sure he's going to be the best guy to ever pitch in this program. And, minus a couple others, he's in the top 2 or 3 to ever play at Santa Clara in terms of his draft position and the numbers he put up when he was healthy. And I remember seeing like his outing his junior year, which actually his redshirt sophomore year, but his 3rd year in school, against Portland. And he could have pitched against the Yankees that night and still struck out 15. And I was like, you know what? Like, I'm so happy we stuck with Mitch, because what we had was a kid who had an intellect for the game, a drive, a growth mindset, somebody who I sat down and had a talking to with him one time during his freshman year when he was redshirting. I said, you have a unique opportunity to make something of this year. Don't throw it away. And from that moment, he was one of the best workers. And it serves him well to this day. He's top 5 prospect in the Dodgers organization, and you're talking about our organization being statistically the best pitching organization in history. That's not me, bleeding the Dodger blue. The statistics back it up, and he's in that upper echelon of the best in the world. And so, again, in the evaluation process, skills are easy to see, but when you get guys who can work and grow and fail and get back up, that's what you need to be successful.
Right. I know, for him, that just looking back on that, guys like Mitch, guys like Steve, going into your program, having not been drafted before. I know that's something that I talk to a lot of our high school players now about, because, they all want to play in the big leagues, and development is big. And, sometimes I think, no knock on anybody, but sometimes development in college is a little bit overrated. It's really up to the player a lot of times. And one thing I try to tell our guys is it's going to be up to you. If you want to make it to the big leagues, it's not necessarily going to be your college coach that gets you there. But the fact that guys, enter your program having not ever been drafted, and then get a chance like Mitch and like Steve to get drafted in your program, that's one thing I've told our young guys for years now is a tremendous sign of development. To get redrafted is one thing. You get drafted in high school, the chances you get drafted in college are significantly higher. But the guys that don't get drafted and haven't been on everybody's radar forever, to see that and go into your program and see those guys thrive like that is, I think, a huge testament. Probably one of the reasons why the Dodgers have one of the best pitching organizations in the history. But, tell us a little bit about that, about the development side for you guys while you were there, or even, some things that you're doing now.
Yeah. So I think that was a huge point of pride for me as a recruiter and then as a pitching coach. If you look at our track record in the 6 years that I was there, we had a really good run of having pitchers who had never been drafted. And then Ryan Garco, who was at Pacific for a little bit of time, one of my coworkers with the Dodgers called him and they said, who's the most talented team in the WCC? This is the year after we had left. So all of our players were still there at Santa Clara. And Garco was like, oh, it's Santa Clara by far. And they had 9 guys drafted. I think it was 6 of which had not been drafted before. We had Reese Corrales. We had Steven Wilson had been drafted, but got drafted again. Mitch White had not been drafted. Kevin George. We just had a streak of Tommy Nance, as I'm just thinking of the names off the top of my head. But we had a great run of guys who, there are 2 things I would tell the guys in the recruiting process really up front. I really value workers, guys who are willing to work. I'm going to get in the trenches too. That's me. I will never ask you to do something I won't get in the trenches with you to do. And at the same time, you have to be willing to view failure as a learning opportunity. So if you will work and you can work through failure, I'm all in. And, the other part for me too is understand from the jump, your value as a human being to me isn't about your performance. It has nothing to do with it, because baseball is a cruel mistress. You're going to fail. You're either humble or you're about to be. And so failure is real. And your value to me as a person isn't about your performance. I'm going to love you every day. I'm not going to like the way you perform. I'm not going to necessarily like your attitude, and I'm going to call you on it. I will have the honest conversations, but I always knew with the guys that came into the program, I had been upfront enough about where my values were, and guys had to reflect that in any organization. The underlings take on the personality of the leader. So in an athletic department, the AD is reflecting the the coaches are reflecting the AD, the assistant coaches are reflecting the head coach, and the players reflect their position coach. And so it's like, let's jump in, get beat up, work really hard, have a great time doing it, hug it out at the end. Awesome. And so if we could do that, you know, we were never going to lose. We were just going to win or learn. And, you know, I think we did a good job of moving that needle and teaching guys to do that, and getting them to a point where they could be successful, not only at Santa Clara with crazy amounts of demand, their time and their schedule, but also professional baseball. You know, this year, I think there were 5 or 6 Santa Clara alum that were in Major League camp this year. Like, come on, that's amazing. So,
yeah, Mitch being one of them, right? We were pretty excited. We were
Mitch
hoping
and Stevie both. Mitch and Stevie both.
Yeah.
So,
I know that's one thing. Tommy sent me a picture, I think an IG video of Steve catching a bullpen with David Price, and I was just like, oh man, I had to text him right away.
He caught Price's first bullpen.
Oh, really?
Yeah. He was like, he's electric.
Yep.
It's ridiculous.
Yep. So
So
Tom,
I have
know
a question for you, Gabe.
Regarding development.
Wait. Oh,
Shoot.
so Gabe, I had a question. I know you're one of 2 pitching coordinators. You're the performance pitching coordinator, correct?
Yep.
And there's a logistics pitching coordinator. What is the difference between the 2 jobs?
Yeah. So my counterpart, Don Alexander, he really looks at like planning the ramp for guys, monitoring workload, making sure that all of our affiliates are loaded with the right amount of pitchers. We both give a lot of our streams cross a lot, and I talk to Donnie
right
at least when we're away 4 to 5 times a week, and when we're together we probably spend 10 hours of our day together. You know, like we work hand in hand, but kind of the gist of what my responsibilities are to really make sure every department is talking to each other. So our strength and conditioning, which we call performance. So performance, our analytics team, our medical team, our baseball group. It's to continue to push our knowledge base, our use of technology, our understanding of our science and our like biomechanics. We've also expanded our leadership group this year. So we have a couple more coordinators as well, but Donnie and I have been together for 3 years now, and we welcomed in Rob Hill from Driveline, a guy named Brandon Irby who played for 10 years and was actually working for Boeing before he decided to come back. And we elevated a guy mentally named Brent Minta. So they all have coordinator titles too, but Donnie and I are kind of the orienting points. And, you know, we talk to each other a lot, and it's definitely been an interesting move for me to go from coaching the player every day to helping to lead our coaching staffs and being a little bit more administrative with our front office and unifying departments to get development and performance to where it needs to be.
Awesome. You guys are technology wise, you guys are you're up there with, you know, most teams. What's something that you learned when you joined the Dodgers? You know, because like I said, I know they're using numbers and all that stuff.
Yeah, we dive about as deep into science and analytics as anybody. And that is, you know, I have tons of respect for a lot of organizations out there. I think there are organizations that are really invested in it, kind of interested in tech and analytics, and then those that are like deniers, like, oh, just go play. And
Right.
ultimately, like, we're at this very, us, Houston, Cleveland, the Yankees, you know, we're way up here in our use of tech. And there's others too, but those come to mind quickly. I will say this, in my 3 years with the Dodgers, my beliefs have been shattered. Like, the things I thought I knew about the delivery, about the way we sequence pitches, about so many things. Once you start really understanding the science of it, you'll just change your perspective. And so,
Yeah, that's awesome.
you know, I don't know how I would do now without a Rapsodo and an Edgertronic and like TrackMan. Like, I
Right.
look at that stuff constantly.
Right.
And, you know, kudos to our performance department for teaching me so much about just how the human body moves in general. I had like a decent knowledge of it from a baseball perspective, but those guys have really taught me. And my knowledge compared to theirs is like this much, if theirs is this much. And you know, but we just have incredibly smart people that have gotten me to look at how the human body works really differently, and how to really bear down on individualizing training,
Right.
and individualizing every session, not only from what we want to do on how the ball spins or how we create force or any of that, but also how we communicate socially, emotionally with the player to make sure that learning happens,
Right.
because you haven't coached until they've learned, right? So
That's awesome.
So what would be some things now, like what would you recommend your guys doing? What are some guys in quarantine and shelter in place? What are some minor leaguers, your recommendations for them to stay in shape, keep their arms you know, in shape for if and when this season starts back up?
yeah, so I was having a conversation with a mentor of mine, and he said, if I told you to run a race, go, what would you do? And I said, well, I would ask how long the race was. And he's like, what if I told you there was no finish line? I said, well, I would go really slow. And he was like, yeah, well, that's what everybody's going to do, right? And so, since we have no finish line, what guys are faced with right now is creating that finish line for themselves and understanding that the bell could ring at any moment. You could be charged back into action. And when it does ring, if you are underprepared, you're going to stand out like a sore thumb from the guys who prepared. And so, you know, there are myriad of things that guys can be doing right now, from throwing into a mattress in your basement to grabbing a net and throwing, to take a bucket of balls out to a field and throw against a backstop. You know, there's a million things you can do. If you have access to a catcher, like, dial up the hitters that give you the most trouble in your head and execute pitches to that guy, you know, but also with the understanding that, you know, what we're trying to do is maintain some sort of chronic workload, and the acute to chronic workload scale. Like, acute is what you're doing today, chronic is what you do over time. And so we're trying to maintain chronic workload without overdoing the acute workload to the point where you get hurt. So it's like, throw 2 30-pitch bullpens every week, if you can, if that's where your body was at getting ready for the season. And if it wasn't, then, you know, play a lot of catch, play some long toss. And to be honest, you don't really need a partner. Again, where there's a will, there's a way. I grew up in Brunswick, Maine. I had a bucket of 150 balls, and
I think we lost you there. Yeah.
oh, am I back? Can you hear me again?
I got you.
Okay. But
Yeah, I got you.
there's any number of things guys can be doing. And, you know, fill a backpack full of books and do squats while you're wearing it. You know, do push-ups, sit-ups. There's a million ways to keep your body going. And again, like, most guys in your program probably have a set of like jigs. They probably have plyo balls. And they probably have at least one other human being who wants to stay 6 feet apart and go play catch. Like, so go do it, you know? And, you know, I just think that especially in times like this, excuses will be magnified. They always are. But in a time like this, they're really going to be magnified. So strap it on, train hard, you know, with the understanding that we just don't know where the end of this is. But, you know, I got my body weight workout in today. I'm 40 years old. I'm repping out, you know, 70 push-ups and 75 squats, and like, let's go. If I can do it, you little 15-year-olds out there can do it.
Right.
Absolutely. That's one thing we talked to our guys yesterday. We had a Zoom meeting with our program because we've just rolled out basically a calendar of development, basically how to track their development, what they're doing, a link to drill works, and, you know, specific to, you know, speed, strength, you know, all the 5 tools. But, you know, that's one thing I told these guys yesterday is nobody's working too hard. You know, I know at your level, obviously a lot different. Guys are a little bit more maniacal about it and probably are a little bit more cooped up. But I would imagine that there's not a high schooler that or a junior high guy that's putting in too much work now, working out too hard, throwing too much. So good to hear you give them kind of the same advice, you know.
Yeah, it's interesting as you start to get probably halfway through your college career, your work has to change from a lot of volume just to get bigger, stronger, and be able to take that volume. So probably around your junior year, what you have to do is become really smart about the reps you're putting in. But until your junior year of college, you just need a lot of reps. You better figure this thing out. Like, run more, lift more, eat more, sleep better, throw more, take more ground balls, swing the bat more.
So, yeah.
So
we're in for sure. I hope our guys are hearing that. But hey, can't help but notice the ring.
Oh,
Gabe.
yeah.
Yeah, you gotta give us a little breakdown on the ring for sure.
So National League Championship ring, I don't wear it often, but you know, they gave it to me, so I figured this was the right setting to put on the old National League champion. I wish it was a World Series ring. I think our failures have been well documented, but you know, it's really hard, as Andrew Friedman, who is, I think, the best executive in baseball, says, like, people are quick to say you're a failure when you finish second. You know how hard it is to finish second? Like, we're a really, really good baseball club, and our success is unprecedented to win, you know, the 7 National League West Division championships in a row and go to 2 World Series in a row. And, you know, it's to also have the 3rd best, or, you know, depending on who you ask for the ranking, but like in the top 5 best minor league system on top of that, it's absurd, right? Like, we grow our guys. We have more of our homegrown talent in the big leagues than any other organization. And I'm just so proud to be part of that. Like, this ring is just as much about the guys in PD and like the grind that the Mitch Whites and Dustin Mays and Stevie Bermans and, you know, Gavin Lux and all those guys put in as anything.
That's pretty sweet. Hey, so we always finish up with our South Bay 6-pack of questions. Tommy's over here. He'll start firing off. I think some of these, we can ask you now that you're in professional baseball. I don't know if we'd ask your worst recruiting story while you were still recruiting. So, Tom, give it a shot, man.
All right. So we got your favorite pregame meal. It could be either as a player or as a coach.
So as a player, it was always a giant fist. And I have to admit that I love Moons Over My Hammy from Denny's. And then I would pause it at that. But as a coach, we have a guy named Chef Rob in Ogden, which is our short season affiliate, who cooks for our guys. And it doesn't matter what it is. Chef Rob's food is like the bomb, whatever it is. So being in Ogden for a pregame meal is my favorite thing now.
Man, I thought Mitch and Stevie said you guys get fed well in the Dodgers.
Dude, so well.
He did. That is one thing. He goes, when I saw Mitch after, I think it might have been his first professional outing, he goes back in the club. He does his recovery stuff, comes back out, and I'm like, hey, Mitch, how's it going? You hanging in there? And he's like, yeah, it's not half bad. Ribas would tell us that it's nothing but soggy hot dogs and stale nachos. But I just had a shepherd's pie back there, and it was legit.
Dude, when I played, it was peanut butter and jelly and the leftover hot dogs from concessions.
Exactly.
And now these guys are getting like chicken cordon bleu and beef stroganoff, and like, what is this, man?
The bananas aren't brown, right? When you're in the locker room.
That's right.
All right, number 2, the last 3 songs that you've played on your phone.
Okay, so I've been big into this group out of Cincinnati called Diane, and DYAN. I put them on my Spotify to run to. Okay. It's kind of like weird proggy rock stuff. I always have the Avett Brothers. That's my favorite band of all time, so something from them. And then I'm trying to get better at my Spanish. So I was just listening to some Shakira because my Spanish teacher, you need to listen to more Spanish music. So I was listening to Shakira in Spanish earlier. I'm not scared of it. I'm not scared.
Awesome. All right. The weirdest superstition you've seen or done. I'm sure you've probably seen some weird ones now.
So I don't know if this is appropriate for your group, but
we can edit.
Okay, so I played with a catcher who before every game would do a thing called a stuntman, and it involves some alcohol and also lime getting squirted in your eyes. And he would do it before every game, and then he would punch himself right in the face. He was a freaking nut job, and I loved him. He's actually he's a college head coach now. I won't sell him out, but it was unbelievable.
That's awesome. I'm glad we asked that question. The best road trip that you've taken so far?
I'll tell you what, I live now in Nashville, and this was my favorite place to come in the minor leagues. OKC comes here. Nice. Really cool ballpark. The other place I really love is Memphis, which is also AAA, a really good spot. Our 2 affiliates are 2 of my favorites, Ogden and Tulsa. I would say those 4 places are probably my favorite in the minor leagues. And then the worst, there is no second, is Clinton, Iowa, is the absolute worst of the worst place you'll ever go.
Man, I want to say I heard that from somebody before.
I don't think it was first, yeah.
Oh man, they have a dog chow factory there, and it's a super old ballpark.
Sam Delaplane told me that. Yes.
Oh, yeah, Sam played there. I ran into Sam. I was doing rounds, and I went there, and I literally remember being there as a player, thinking, and they have done some updates to the field, and it's still the worst. And there's a river out back. They don't really keep up the field. We were there on opening night for fireworks. There was 120 people in the stands, and the place is falling apart, and it stinks like dog chow, and the mosquitoes are carrying you away because there's a river right behind the field. It is miserable. The worst.
That's hilarious. All right. Well, then you just answered number 5, the worst road trip. I mean, but yeah, I've heard about Clinton. That's where I heard about it. Yes, it was the dog food. As soon as you said dog food, boom, just clicked.
Yep, stay away. There's no reason to ever go.
And number 6, the worst recruiting story.
Now, let me just, that is maybe a guy that got away. Maybe that's some parents that got you involved.
It doesn't have to get you.
You liked the guy and you watched him chuck a helmet, something along those lines. Like, tell us where you were just turned off.
Well, I can tell you one of the most painful ones was a guy at Santa Clara, we recruited Luis Gonzalez, not the guy that played for the Diamondbacks. I think he's in AAA with the White Sox now, but ended up going to New Mexico, played for Team USA. Keith Bower, he was really good. And we did a home visit, and Santa Clara was probably going to be too expensive for the kid. And Keith Beauregard was like, you just give him 100%. And I was like, Keith, we can't do that. Like, what are we talking about here? And it turns out we probably should have given him 100% because, I mean, I think he was a freshman All-American, like second or third round pick, and Team USA, and he was a two-way guy. He pitched and he played outfield. And I just, like, Keith has given me so much on that one. Man, that one hurt my feelings to lose him. I definitely – this is a bad one. I'm at Northwestern, and I get a call on a kid, super athlete up in Wisconsin. So I've got to make a 5-hour drive to go see him. So I skip practice, and I'm driving up to see him, and he's a shortstop, supposed to be like 6'3", shortstop, stud. And I get to the field, and he's catching. Okay. Like, I came to see a shortstop, but he's catching, gauge some athleticism. And I asked the coach, are you going to move him around? He goes, yeah, I'll get him in the infield. So he then goes to the outfield like halfway through the game after he's punched out twice. And then he comes and plays first base. So I never see the guy play shortstop. I think he popped up, and he went 0 for the day and didn't make a play anywhere except when he was catching. And I had to drive 5.5 hours home to Chicago afterwards. And I was like, that was the worst. Like,
that's rough.
What
for the
just
kid,
happened?
Man, that's rough for the kid
Oh,
too. Yeah, I mean,
no doubt.
Shot, and you got him over here playing one bag in left field.
Every position you want to see.
Every position I wasn't there to recruit. Like, we were loaded up with these like donkeys, like non-skill hitters, and like, oh my gosh, it was just, I just remember feeling so defeated driving 5.5 hours back to my apartment. Like, what did I just do? Like, what happened?
So I got a little question off of that. Like, does that change the way you view that organization? I mean, when you went there 5 hours, and does it affect how you recruit players moving forward?
No doubt, 100%. I mean, all I ever want is a dude, like, if I'm going to make that kind of effort, like, respect my effort, man. And I told the coach when I showed up, I'm like, I'm here to see him play shortstop because that's what you guys called us on. And like, to just be ignored after that kind of effort, I'm like,
yeah. We'll get him there.
I'm like, all right, I'm out. Like, don't call me. Don't send me anything in the mail. Please lose my email address. Like, we'll be okay.
Brutal.
Yeah.
Well, all right, Gabe. I think we've taken up plenty of your time. We appreciate all the time that you spent with us. We know that you're a busy man over there at home with your girls. So please first tell everybody I said hello. And once again, appreciate your time and effort. We're going to get this to our guys. A lot of great information for them. So we're excited to get it to them so they can check it out.
Awesome. Appreciate you guys having me on, and keep killing it. Love Trotsky Cali. Best program out there. So keep doing your thing, boys.
Appreciate
it.
it.
Take care, man.
See you.
Gabe.